Today we are going to be talking about my first impressions on the White Dwarf Combat Patrol Strike Team Solarien. Let's go. As you may or may not be aware of, White Dwarf magazine 496 contains a new combat patrol that is officially going to be used, and you can just apply it to any combat patrol game. You can use it for pickup games in Warhammer stores and all that good stuff. Simply because it's official, all you kind of need is the White Dwarf magazine itself, which is 496. So if you buy that, you're good to go. The other thing is the Combat Patrol magazine, or the White Dwarf magazine, has not released yet. I don't have it in hand. I was looking at YouTube videos of someone flipping through the pages to get a kind of first impression of the rules. So a full review is going to be here next week. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, subscribe, leave a thumbs up so I know you're interested. But I'm definitely going to play a lot with this one over the course of the next few days. And then I'm going to make a comprehensive review for this one and go a little bit more in depth than I'm going to go over today. So what exactly is Strike Team Solarien? Strike Team Solarien is obviously another Space Marine Combat Patrol. Now here I wish that we've gotten another faction, because obviously Space Marines have by far the most combat patrols available to them, with all the different sub-factions like Dark Angels, Space Wolves, Death Watch, all that good stuff. All of them have their own rules. So getting another faction like Necrons, for example, or Chaos Space Marines or something would have been nice. But I'm holding out that White Dwarf is going to give us another new combat patrol periodically, and I hope it's not going to be just Space Marines. Another thing is that the models in Strike Team Solarien are all from an older box from 2018 or 2019 called Shadow Spear. And if you had those models, they were also contained in an older Start Collecting. They were also contained in the current Strike Squad box. So they are available everywhere, but it is basically the old Shadow Spear box without eliminators. So what exactly is in this combat patrol? You need a 10-man infiltrator squad, which is easy enough to acquire or to already have. You need one Phobos lieutenant. You need one suppressor squad. This one is a little bit more difficult to get. And you need one Phobos librarian. So the models included in this particular combat patrol are a little bit more specialized. They are all Phobos themed, and they were all included, as I said, in Shadow Spear and in the old Start Collecting and so on. If you are interested in picking this particular combat patrol up today, with all the models without any proxies, you would need to pick up a box called Vanguard Task Force. This is only available on the Warhammer store, and it is a little bit expensive for what it offers, considering it was available for $90 back in the day, and these days you're paying way more than that. So take it with a grain of salt. But if you wanted to run Strike Team Solarien for cheap, and if you already have some Space Marine models, just proxy the suppressors with Inceptors and call it a day there, because you don't really need the suppressors just for the combat patrol if you don't see yourself running them in any other game mode. And I think Inceptors and so on have exactly the same base size, roughly the same silhouette, and just height, so you're going to be fine there. Now, when it comes to my first impressions of this particular box, it makes sense. I've written rules on the channel that you can check out in a video for the older Space Marine Start Collecting that got replaced, which is basically the Vanguard Task Force and an Impulsor together. I removed the eliminators from that box as well, from that rule set, simply because eliminators are too good in combat patrol, because they're picking out the only character that your opponent has. They immediately delete that character, and there's no fun in that. So eliminators in combat patrol, or generally in sub 1000 points games, are not advised. I wouldn't bring them, and yeah, they are just anti-fun in my opinion. So I'm really glad that I don't see them here. Having 10 infiltrators seems fine. Having suppressors as a little bit more of a heavy weapon squad makes sense. Having two characters is a weird choice. I would have preferred having another squad of something. But yeah, it seems that GW doesn't really want to feature, for example, Reavers, which also have Phobos armor. And they just wanted to go with what was available in Shadow Spear or in the Vanguard Task Force. But even if you pick up the Vanguard Task Force, you still need to pick up a separate Phobos librarian, because that is not available in there. So yeah, you need to consider that. Now, when it comes to the rules seem fine to me. So let's go over them real quick. So obviously you have Oath of Moment as your army ability, and then you have enhancements for your Warlord, which is the Phobos Lieutenant, not the Librarian. You get autocorral resonators. This one says, at the end of your command phase, if the bearer's unit is within range of an objective marker you control, that objective marker remains under your control. It's basically sticky objectives for the unit of your lieutenant, and that's basically that. it's fine. It's a little bit stupid that you need to kind of waste an enhancement to get something that almost every other combat patrol is getting for free, because they just have battle line in them, and this doesn't count as battle line. A little bit weird, because I think that the designers here had the flexibility to make Infiltrator's battle line for combat patrol, and I don't think that would have taken away too much, or that it would have made the transition from combat patrol to regular 40k complicated or anything. I personally would have given the Infiltrators just straight up battle line, so they can stick your objectives and call it a day there. No additional OC or anything, just for the sticky objectives. Here, you need to waste an enhancement for that, and you're going to use it against an opponent that doesn't have a lot of models on the table. For example, against the regular Space Marine Combat Patrol, which barely has any units, this one is excellent. But you shouldn't run this one against Tyranids or something that has a trillion bodies, despite it just being a Combat Patrol game, because the likelihood of you being able to hold an objective that is stickied throughout the game is going to be next to zero. So yeah, that is something to consider here. So what are you picking if you're playing against something like the Tyranid Combat Patrol? You're going to pick Stealthy Hunter. The bearer has the lone operative and stealth abilities, and its mastercrafted bolt carabine has the anti-infantry 4, devastating wounds, and precision abilities. That is actually really damn cool. Obviously, the mastercrafted bolt carabine is no super strong weapon or anything, so getting all those keywords may seem very, very impressive, but in reality, it's just a nice little boost. What is the true star of this particular enhancement is that you're getting the lone operative and stealth abilities. This means that you're getting effectively another unit that you can use as an objective holder, as something to annoy your opponent with, as a distraction tool, and it is extremely potent and strong. If you've been paying attention to any competitive Space Marine lists lately or over the course of the past 6 months or anything, the Lieutenant with combi weapon that we've gotten in the Leviathan box has been incredibly popular, simply because of the lone operative ability and because of what an annoying unit that is to take down and to deal with. And yeah, this is basically turning your Phobos Lieutenant into that kind of model, and it is a very strong enhancement, and probably the one I prefer out of the two. But as I said, the autocorral resonators also have their place, simply against armies that have barely any units on the table. Next up, we have our secondary objectives. Here we have the Reconnaissance in Force. This one reads, from the second battle round onward, at the end of your turn, you score 2 victory points if you control at least one objective marker in No Man's Land, and you control the same number of objective markers in No Man's Land as your opponent, or you score 4 victory points if you control at least one objective marker in No Man's Land and control more than your opponent does, basically. So this is to hold off your opponent, overwhelm them with the number of units you have. This is especially good with Stealthy Hunter, and it's a decent secondary objective that is going to score you, at least in my estimation, 6 to maybe 8 victory points per game if you are really good at just holding objectives and keeping your opponent off of them. Then we have Pinpoint Purge. This one reads, you score 2 victory points each time a model from your army destroys an enemy unit with a ranged attack, which is going to be most of the time. And if that unit was your Oath of Moment target, you scored 3 victory points instead. This one you're going to pick against armies that are squishy and that have a lot of targets that can just fall over. The most popular example here would be probably if you're going to play against the Death Guard Combat Patrol, which has just 30 Poxwalkers that are going to melt away, especially if you Oath of Moment them. It's going to be perfect for that. If your opponent is just going to run maybe Tyranids and have a ton of squishy Termagants, which are good at holding objectives and you need to get rid of them anyway, Pinpoint Purge is going to be excellent. As soon as you play against a more elite force, like for example the Grey Knights or just the basic Combat Patrol Dark Angels with the Redemptor Dreadnought and Inceptors, I wouldn't recommend for Pinpoint Purge. At that point you pick Reconnaissance in Force, and that is kind of the idea of this entire Combat Patrol, if you can see. Autocorral Resonators and Reconnaissance in Force, you pick both of those against armies that have few units, and you can dominate them via just overrunning them. Or you're picking Stealthy Hunter and Pinpoint Purge if you are playing against a Combat Patrol that has a lot of different targets, a lot of different units, ideally squishy ones, and you're going to focus on taking them out instead of just holding objectives at the entire game, which is really cool. Mixing and matching the default and optional enhancements and secondary objectives doesn't seem like making too much of a sense simply because they synergize so well together. So I would pick either both default secondary enhancement and secondary objective or the optional ones. When it comes to the stratagems, these ones are more or less exactly what you expect. You get a 1 CP Vanguard Strike. This one reads, one adept as a status unit from your army until the start of the next command phase, add 1 to the objective control characteristic of models in your unit. This is basically to offset that you don't have any battle line in the box and you don't have any unit with more than OC2, especially your basic infantry like your infiltrators would really benefit from this one, and just getting your victory points that way is incredibly strong. And the Vanguard Strike is not a kind of stratagem that you are going to think is very strong. It's just that you tell your opponent that you have access to Vanguard Strike, and it is enough of a tool to sometimes deter them from trying to contest objectives and all that good stuff. So it just existing is already a threat, which is kind of cool. Then you have the Giant Slayer Doctrine. This is obviously for you to take out anything that is a big target, because suppressors just do not have the firepower to do that on their own. While they are strong, they don't have any high strength weapons, I think. They're strength 7 or something. So they need a little bit of help. So your suppressor squad gets the anti-monster and anti-vehicle for up abilities, which is pretty decent, and they up their armor penetration by an additional 1. So you're going to do a lot of damage with this one, and you're going to be using this one a lot if you're playing against an army that has just a big target that you want to take out. Usually it is best to just ignore those big targets, but sometimes that is not possible. So that is where the Giant Slayer Doctrine comes in. I don't know if it's quite enough, to be completely honest, but it is what it is. Then we have Rapid Repositioning. In your opponent's movement phase, whenever they end a normal advance or fallback move, 1 Phobos unit from army that is within 9 inches of the model that just of the unit that just moved, those models can move an additional 3 inches away, probably. So whenever your opponent moves up, especially if they are orcs or something, and they would have a 5-inch charge or a 6-inch charge, moving 3 inches away is going to be incredibly potent, because it's going to make those charges way more difficult to pull off and probably save your Phobos units for another turn, which is great. So Rapid Repositioning is a really good stratagem. So the stratagems seem fairly potent all in all. So that's it for the rules for this particular combat patrol. I'm going to go over the particular models one by one in the full review, simply because I think that you already know what to expect from most of them. They are more or less unchanged, except for a couple of minor differences to the full game. And yeah, we're going to go over all of that once I've gotten a little bit more experience with this combat patrol, once I've tried it out in different matchups, and yeah, once I can give a little bit more of an educated opinion on this one. But I think this first impression video serves as a kind of first idea of how good this combat patrol could be, and it is meant to maybe motivate you to go out and, you know, use those models if you have them, or proxy them and try out this combat patrol yourself. So you can maybe also leave feedback in the comments of the video, just your thoughts, and maybe you disagree with me or agree with me, and all of that good stuff would be definitely helpful for the full review. Or once the full review arrives, you can comment there, and it's going to be an interesting discussion. So yeah, I hope this video was interesting, and yeah, I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.